Thank you very much for having me and Veronique. That was the first time this band has ever played. With me today is Benjamin on guitar of the D.school here in Paris. And David on drums, who I just met 15 minutes ago. When Veronique asked me to talk about empathy and communication as a person steeped in literature and music and rhetoric, I jumped at the chance. I said, I'll be happy to talk about empathy. And then she said, and can you do something with music? Because she had seen me do something with music before. One of the pillars of my country, or of my company is music, and using music to teach different concepts. And so she had seen me do that at Stanford when I was teaching there. That's where we met. And that's how I got involved in design thinking. I was in the humanities, and I ended up spending far more time in the D.school than my own department. They were doing cooler things there. And so I got really interested in how something like design thinking could affect education, and began to pull it into my classroom. I had been using music for quite some time. And so when I got to thinking about what could we do with music and what could we do with empathy, a band is the perfect microcosm of connection. It's a perfect way of empathizing. It's a perfect way of demonstrating how you have to be connected. So the first time we play is this moment. There's a lot going on that you're not seeing, probably, unless you're a musician. How many musicians do I have out there? Does that make sense to you guys? There's communication happening on some levels, and I have no idea until we start if David and I are going to connect. But the moment he hit that hi-hat, we connected. He was right in my world. I was like, oh, yeah. Right? As a bass player, I'm like, I live for this guy right here, right? And the same thing with Benjamin, right? His tone tells me something right away. And so what I'd like to do is look at and use music to teach a few concepts about empathy. Veronique said earlier that before you can disseminate empathy, you must embody it, and I couldn't agree more. And before you can speak about empathy, you must first listen. But listening is complicated, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. We're going to look at a culture of purposeful listening, of creating a culture of purposeful listening. One of the parts of my company is called Presenting with Purpose. And I go to different companies like Deloitte or Nissan North America and talk about doing something on purpose. And I'll ask them, is it your intent to bore somebody? They're like, no. I said, well, then do it on purpose if you're going to do it. Right? So do things on purpose. If you want to excite them, excite them. If you want to connect with them, connect with them. So we're going to look about creating a purposeful culture of listening, and then a supportive and safe environment to take risks and try new things. You have one right here. The fact that Veronique would let me get up here with a bass guitar at the session is already tells me it's a safe place. But before we do that, I want to look at something that we in the field of rhetoric call the rhetorical triangle. A relationship of empathy in communication depends on three things: a speaker, a message, and an audience. You disrupt any one part of that triangle, and you disrupt the connection and the positiveness of that message, and sometimes even the ability to communicate that message. Well, in music, we have a band, we have music, and we have an audience. And the same thing, if we don't connect, you can hear it in the music. The product of a band is music. And I'm sure at some point in your life you've been somewhere where you've heard a band that doesn't connect. And then you've seen one that does. And they're worlds apart. And so we're going to use music today just for a few moments in a couple of different ways to unpack levels of listening. So the art of listening, and I believe it's an art. Rhetoric is Aristotle called it the art of persuasion. And the reason I think it's an art, even though there's science there, is because it's about choice. An artist chooses which color, what brushstroke to use. A musician chooses if I'm going to play this note or that note. The note is the note. How it comes out is my choice. So the art of listening applies the same way. So we're going to start with just basic listening. You know, this is the stuff that's the bare minimum. And rather than talk to you about it, let's just show them what not listening looks like on the bandstand. Is that okay with you guys? It won't be too long. That, my friends, is a kind audience. That sucked, right? Tell me why. We weren't connected? Who was I listening to? Yeah, I sounded awesome. Didn't you hear what I was doing? Were you even playing? Man, I was in it. What else? Why else did it suck? Out of tune. I'm in tune. What do you really mean?
Not all of you have the same tune.
We're not in the same rhythm, so we're out of sync. Yeah. We're also not in the same key, right? Which is really what you mean. Like, it sounds out of tune. I was in A, he was in a different key. I don't know what I wasn't listening to him. I don't know what the drums were doing. David, were you even doing anything? See? Right? That is, in a moment, we're all doing something different. For example, David, would you play what you were playing just by itself? All right, cool. That sounds good, doesn't it? Here's what I was doing. By itself? What were you doing? That's so French. Each one of its parts is beautiful. But when we're not in sync, when there's not an empathetic reality on the stand, it all sounds like crap. Right? If I can be very Tennessean on you. You bring a guy from Nashville, right? But when we're together, I can't play that with what he's playing. If I play what I play with what that'd sound like it sounded, right? Rather, let's do a basic example of listening. So all I'm going to do is listen in the most basic fashion and then respond. And same thing with David. We're just going to give the most basic form of listening to music. Right? Better? Not amazing, right? In the most basic form, what was I doing that was just so basic about that? Say it again? I'm sorry, one more time. I was listening, but what made it, what I responded to would prove that it was a basic form of listening. I played the same notes. All I did, I go, okay, he's playing C, B, A, C, B, A, and so I went, fine, C, B, A, C, B, A, right? That's legal. I can get away with that, right? So it's the bare minimum. So if I'm playing with Benjamin as the art of listening, that's the least I could do, right? But let's look at what happens if we take it a little further, and now we're going to focus. We're going to be more active. I'm going to listen to more than the note that he's playing. And at this point, we'll see if that makes a difference. A little bit better? A little more involved. You saw how he stopped perfectly, David? Right? I want this drummer. Do you know who Nashville is? A drummer that just reads you that way. I'm not giving him any help. So I told Benjamin, I said, he just needs to be able to follow. Right? And he's doing, it's amazing. I love it. What am I doing a little bit differently there? I'm adding some things in. Right? Amplifying what he's doing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm answering. That's beautiful. It's a response. Right? So he's got that. right, going on. So I'm going to use that. Maybe I'm going to run. But now I'm responding to the feel of what he's doing. I'm not going, right? I could go, it'd be horrible, but legal until he shot me, right? I'm listening to the tone. I'm hearing the attitude that's coming from his guitar, right? When we do active listening, now we're attentive. We're not just hearing, we're paying attention, right? And you know what I'm talking about. When you're talking to someone, I'm a husband. There's times I do basic listening, and I'm called on it. Because I can repeat the words back, but they didn't register, right? And so active listening is, yeah, she's met my wife. She knows me. You're not listening. I'm listening. She goes, you're not listening. I'm like, okay, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I'm not listening on that level, right? So we're attentive and we're responsive, right? We speak back to this notion of listening. Those are the 2 points of listening I think that most people know. But I want to encourage you in thinking about how you can disseminate empathy by first practicing. Think about empowered listening, right? This is a listening that is deeply empathetic. It goes deeper now because it's going to encourage innovation. So if we were to take that same, what we've been doing, how might we approach that, Benjamin? How might we approach that to be empowerment?
Maybe what you can do is you can start playing, because I think he was playing some very nice stuff, and maybe you can start, it's always the guitar that starts, but we can change and you start whatever you want, whatever you feel.
Okay.
We will follow you with David.
Oh, okay. Do I have to stay in C?
No, you can change. Do whatever you want.
All right. So now we have him telling a bass player to start. This is dangerous. All right. I've just looped my part. Well, that's not right. You can't have a bass playing lead. The bass's job in Nashville is to do this. Sometimes we get to do this. Actually, country music is going through quite an innovation. What happens in this moment is, and what we're kind of replicating is, that the guitar is usually the lead instrument, correct? Right? We could have piano up here, we could have something else. Guitar is usually the lead instrument. But what he's done is heard something. When I was playing behind him, he heard me hit a harmonic. Right? And he goes, I heard something in what I'm supposed to be listening to him. That's the bass player's job, right? But he's listening back to me. And he said, why don't you try something what I'm hearing makes me think about doing something different. And so then he throws it back to me, and suddenly the bass is the lead, right? Which may or may not be a good thing, but it lets us try it, right? And now as part of a band, I feel very much listened to, right? And so to me, the notion of empowered listening is we usually think about listening like if I'm in a leadership position, then the people I'm leading need to listen to me. That's not the only way listening goes. I need to be listening back that way, and then someone who maybe is not in a position of leadership needs to be listened to as if they were, or maybe they need to be brought in. But if you just regulate someone because of a position, an instrument, to a certain category and don't ever give them a chance by listening to what they're doing or what they're suggesting they could do, you'll never know, right? I don't know how many bands I could play with that all they'd ever want me to do is just, and that's fine, but I would like to do a little bit more, and I can. But I won't do it unless they ask, because I'm listening to them. So the band is a perfect, a bandstand is a great place to think about listening in those kind of ways. But it's also a great place that leads to creativity, right? We could have songs we are ready to do, but if all we ever do are those same songs, and we don't listen to what may come out of it, then we're not going to grow. And the best musicians, the Miles Davis of the world, right? The John Coltrane's in jazz, all the way to Nirvana and grunge, were doing something different because they heard something different. And they're amazing. And I just did mention Miles Davis and Kurt Cobain in the same sentence, because I think they were both innovators, and they changed the world in a lot of ways. But that's not the only way. So I'd like to show you another way. By communicating empathy through support. Not words per se, but how you react to someone. And for this one, I want to do an activity that requires a volunteer. How many people would say that they love music? Okay. How many people would say, I love music, but I've never played guitar? All right. I see that Veronique has raised her hand. You brought me in. Why don't you come up here? This has not been planned or rehearsed. No one will be hurt, maybe, unless she falls on the steps. Would you grab that bass and put it on, please?
Well, I didn't know. Trick. I've never done it, okay? And I didn't know.
You don't have, no apologies. This is a safe place, isn't it?
Excuses bullshit.
All right? Yeah. Now, stop right there. Does she look like a beginner? No. She didn't walk up here and try to pick it up and blow through it, right? She may have never have played guitar, but she's not a beginner. She walked up and put it on like a pro, and then she's like, that's how Veronique stands anyway, but just with the guitar, it kind of works, right? Throw your hair back a little bit. There you go. Why do I also know that Veronique is not a beginner when she walks up here? What was the first question I asked of everyone? Do you love music? And if you said yes, even if you said no, you're not a beginner. You've been listening to music your whole life. So is Veronique. She's not a beginner to music. That may be the first time she picked up a bass. But she's not a beginner as far as I'm concerned. A bass by itself sounds like this. The music is here. It's in us. So Veronique, here's what we're going to do. Okay. David, can you give me just a steady Michael Jackson Beat It rhythm? All right, Veronique. With this hand, squeeze the string up here somewhere up here. Just anywhere. That's fine. Okay. With your right hand, put it on the same string and dance to that beat. Keep going. Keep going. keep going. If someone walked in right now, keep going. Just keep going. If someone walked in right now, is there a beginner on stage? She's the better looking bass player by far, right? They're not even paying attention to me. All right, so Veronica, keep playing. Keep going. So here's what you're going to do. In a moment, don't think about it. In a moment, I'm going to have you do the same thing, just on the next string. Keep playing. All right, keep, right? Right. Oh, you got it. Now it's a song, right? Back to the original way. 3, 4. Back to the first way. Oh, we're going crazy now. Keep going. That's all right. All right. Back to the beginning right here. All right. Nice. Bring us to an end. That was beautiful.
I knew you were crazy.
In this situation, we take someone that's not done something. We don't assume they don't know anything just because they haven't done that thing. I assume a wealth of musical knowledge when she walks up here. It's just not been expressed through that instrument, right? What did we do up here that made that work? What did we do? We know what Veronique did. She got funky on the G, all right? But what did we do that helped make that happen? We listened to her. She chose the key. We followed. What else? We made her feel safe. How did we make her feel safe? How were we being supportive? I'm a detail guy. I've included her, right? She walked up and I wouldn't go, stand back there. You know, it's like, come up here. Put the bass on, get up here, girl. And she's like, I don't know. Because she's Veronique. She's right. Surprised she didn't take over my position. It's like, I got this, Rod. What else did we do? I showed her. How did I show her? In a complicated fashion? I didn't say, Veronique, you need to go to the third position on the G. Right? Because that's third position. You're right. I just said, put your finger anywhere. And then what did I tell her to do with her right hand? Anyone hear me when I said that? I said, dance with your right hand. So Veronique's dance, by the way, is this. So when I went through, right? So bam, bam, right? So she's got, I've just danced, and immediately she hits the one, which is the bass player heaven, right? Just bam, da, 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 bam, right? So she's right there on the one. Her timing's perfect. I knew it would. All your timings are perfect because you listen to music. So I gave her a simple illustration to get going. Just dance. Because she was already doing this. I'm like, just get that happen here. And she did. So I took what I knew she already knew, what she was already able to do, and I just translated. I didn't make it more complicated. I could have. And in the music world, just as in the academic world, we professors can make it far more complicated than it needs to be. I can make someone feel really dumb really fast in a class. And you can do it on the bandstand. I've seen it done. Right? We could have made it a far more complicated beat, but David played something that was absolutely driving home that groove. He could have played a shuffle. We could have played in 7/8. We could have done a lot of things, but I focused on saying, okay, I want her to take a risk. I'm going to meet her where she's at. I'm going to listen to what she's doing, and I'm going to provide a level of support that leads to a safe place for her to take risks. Right? Because I want her to do well. Someone earlier talked about that, creating an environment. Right? Create an environment where you want them to do well, and they know you want them to do well. You want to have a good meeting with leaders? Encourage them to say anything, and then don't get mad when they do. Right? If you want really good feedback to be reflective on, free people up to give it back to you. And then don't get mad when they do. You've got to really make it safe. Because I've seen people go, oh, you can say anything to me. And I go, okay, well, here. And they go, okay. And then we're done. I say, well, that was a safe place for about a second. So really creating a safe place and a creative space to try new things, right? We had to respond to Veronique because we let her lead the groove, right? So I didn't know when she started what I would do. But then she hit that one, and it left all this space, right? So if she's doing, then I've got, and letting her take that one, and she's dictating to me what I can do creatively. I'm like, oh, that's nice, right? But it also lets her be creative when she starts to move. She wanted to do every string. Did you figure that out? She's wanted to explore it, right? If we had more time, that's exactly what we would have done. If I was wanting to teach Veronique bass, this is exactly how I would do it. I wouldn't stick her in a desk by herself and put a score chart in front of her and say, play, no, play one up, half step up. This is how I learned to play, by the way. Right? And then, it didn't go that well. I would bring her to a band, and I'd say, try that, and see what happens. And then we would go, and we would play, and we'd have wonderful people like Benjamin and David who are patient and would say, let's see what we can do. And when she left that day, what do you think her response would be? I want to do that again. If we showed her how complicated music would be, what would be the response? It would be the last time she picked up that bass, and she'd probably hate it every time she saw it. So when we're thinking about empathy, about connecting, part of my empathy with Veronique is I'm going to say, okay, she comes to me with a lot of knowledge that she doesn't think applies, but I think it does. And I'm going to empower her with that. And I'm going to listen to her and meet her where she's at, and then I'm going to make sure that she's supportive. When those connections are in place, when you're listening and you're able to demonstrate that support, now we're embodying empathy, and now we can disseminate it in the workplace. Until that moment, I can tell my people to, listen to each other. Or I can do it first and practice it in my own life. And so music is just a simple way for us to do that and to show that. And so those are just two quick things I think that came to mind for me, at least when she asked me to think about empathy and think about how music shows it. And the power is every time you see a band now, you know that's going on. And you can unpack it further. How many different ways that David knows exactly what I'm thinking without me turning around and saying anything to him is because he's connecting with me and I'm connecting with him. Right? We could end that song. Sounded like a pro, didn't she? All right, let's give her a hand. Now, if this was the 60s, you would take that off and smash it into the stage, but it's not my bass, so I'm just going to have you put it back there. So those are the two things I wanted to share with you. I want to give you kind of an analogy that is out there in the world for you to see, no matter if you're listening to classical music or you're listening to opera or listening to country music from Nashville, right? You're seeing people who connect. The artists that we know, remember, and that we love, we have a connection with. And you know the ones in your own life I'm talking about. The lyrics connect with you. They touch you in some way. And if you're an instrumentalist like me, it's a tone of an instrument. It's the way Benjamin plays guitar. I can tell right away that he's a very good listener on guitar. And I play with a lot of guitarists who aren't. They're great, but they don't listen as well as he listens. So I would imagine in his life, you can correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who know him, that he's probably a pretty good listener in life because it comes out in his music. So thank you guys so much for giving us some time. We appreciate it. Can we give you 30 more seconds? All right.